Work can be an exciting place, loud, busy, people everywhere, building, moving, all part of a multi-billion-dollar economy that traditionally outproduces the rest of the world. You and your co-workers can do what past generations only dreamed about. You build faster and higher, move more materials, and produce more every work shift, every work day.
The machines we create play a part in making this possible, like this baby here. It's an American 9720 125-ton pedestal crane. Now every day, your employer expects your best effort, and you expect more too, like going home in one piece, ready to play with the kids or mow the lawn. You will reach these expectations, but only if you avoid accidents by understanding modern worksite hazards and following safe work procedures. This program will teach you to identify and prevent the hazards of working around cranes before these hazards become accidents. It will emphasize the importance of remaining alert and following the rules.
Because cranes allow us to build, load, unload, move, and lift materials too large or too heavy for man or any other kind of machine, they call for caution from the start. Let's begin with you. When you work around cranes, your employer may require safety gear, such as a hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, reflective clothing, safety shoes, and earmuffs or plugs. Experienced workers wear personal protective equipment, or PPE, to keep them safe. These professionals also know not to wear loose-fitting clothes like jackets, shirt sleeves, rings, and other jewelry, which catch on the crane, dragging the unsuspecting into moving machinery or hanging them on the crane during mounting or dismounting. The crane operator is a highly trained and skilled professional. It is up to the operator to determine if the crane is properly set up and if a load should or should not be lifted. The crane operator generally has the final word. The operator is the only person allowed to handle any of the crane's controls, but it may be your responsibility to help the crane operator set up and make sure the working area around the crane is safe. If you're alert to potential problems, accidents may be avoided. Remember, safety is a team effort. Everyone must know and follow the rules. When you arrive on the job site, look around. Be aware that the action overhead can literally sweep you off your feet or hit you on the head and send you to the hospital. That's why the crane's sweep area, or working radius, is usually cordoned off. The sweep area is the total area over which a crane boom can swing. Barricades remind you that the crane boom, tail swing, and load will be moving through this area. Never walk under a load.
Working around cranes calls for teamwork. Even if you are trained in some other trade, you may be asked to help assemble a crane. It's an awesome sight to go from piles of parts to this mighty machine. But professionals will tell you there are many hazards you can't take for granted. And that's why they're professionals. Did you know that over 50% of all crane accidents are caused by improper setup? It could be poor site preparation, or not enough care taken when the crane is being put together, or just rushing through the safety inspection. Whatever the cause, the results can be deadly. Now, here are some of the things you need to watch for.
First, let's talk about the weather. That's right, even the weather plays an important part in crane safety. A crane can act like a huge lightning rod. If lightning should strike the crane, anyone standing on or near the crane may be seriously injured or even killed. Wind is also an important weather factor. High winds can cause a crane boom or load to swing dangerously. An extended raised boom acts like a sail and may pull the crane over. It was high winds that toppled this 100-foot crane onto a technical high school in France, killing 6 students, injuring 3 others, and seriously injuring the crane operator. The crane, working in a nearby residential neighborhood, collapsed the roof onto the 3rd-floor classroom, where 20 students were preparing for technical careers. Some cranes have wind restrictions provided by the manufacturer. The crane operator will decide if the weather is safe for lifting. Next, note the location of overhead and buried power lines and gas lines. These must be precisely marked to prevent accidental contact or cutting. The local power company may come on site to see that the crane is properly grounded, but when a crane superstructure comes into contact with a live power line, the resulting accident can be deadly. Now look at the ground. The crane's supporting surface must be level, firm, and stable enough to support the weight of the crane and its load. Some cranes use outriggers as extra support arms that extend from the sides of the crane carrier and rest firmly on the ground. Outrigger extension must meet the manufacturer's requirements. Some cranes are dangerous unless outriggers are fully extended with wheels off the ground, and some cranes can operate safely with partially extended outriggers. Approximately half of the mobile crane accidents are related to improper outrigger use. Sometimes timber mats are used under outrigger pads to keep the crane from tipping or sinking into soft ground. Once in position with outriggers properly placed and supported, the crane boom may require assembly or alteration. Any time the boom is being assembled, dismantled, shortened, or lengthened, experienced workers know never to walk, work, lean, or place any part of their body under the boom. They never reach into boom sections either. During crane assembly, all parts are carefully inspected. The crane operator should check the crane boom, mast, or jib for fluid leaks, loose fittings, broken hoses, cracked wells, and metal fatigue. At the end of the boom, the pulley, called the sheave, is checked for excess wear. If you're helping to set up the crane, you should be looking for problems too. Job sites change all the time, so if you notice any condition change, don't wait. Tell the crane operator right away. Teamwork promotes safety around cranes.
You probably call this cable, but it isn't. It's wire rope, the lifting lifeline. When handling it, be sure you always wear your safety gloves.
Wire rope is made of 3 different parts: the core, strands, and individual wires. Strands are made up of individual wires and wrapped around the core. If wire rope is worn, kinked, frayed, or crushed, it may fail during lifting. In use, wire rope is bent over a drum or sheave. This tight compression results in fatigue and finally breaking. Also, sudden release of an overload or forcing rope through a tight sheave can cause bird caging or snagging or gouging. Now, the only thing this is good for is the trash. At the end of the wire rope is the load hook or headache or overhaul ball. Don't forget to inspect the hook. If it is sprung, bent, or cracked, or the place where the hook attaches to the wire rope looks worn, tell the crane operator immediately. After the boom is properly assembled, it will be lifted into position. No one ever stands under the boom as the boom is being lifted into place. You can help by keeping the area clear and watching the boom carefully. Now that the crane is set up, its sweep area or working radius becomes critical. Remember, the sweep area is the total area over which the crane boom can swing. This area should be barricaded, and no one should be allowed within the barricades. Cranes are also barricaded to protect workers from pinch points, places where moving parts could trap and crush you. Look for pinch points between moving parts on the carrier or between the crane and a building or vehicle. Some accidents occur when an employee steps inside a barricade to retrieve a water jug, toolbox, or rigging. Survivors of pinch point accidents frequently say they had no idea the operator was planning to swing the boom at that particular moment. The crane is now level, properly set up and inspected. Is it ready to make a lift? Not quite. The load is attached to the hook by a special sling or lifting device called rigging. The crane operator doesn't usually rig the load for lifting. This is a team effort with the operator supervising to make sure rigging is done properly. Every lifting sling and device has a permanent tag showing maximum safe working load capacity. The operator will know the weight of the load. Be sure the sling or device is designed to handle that weight and provide an adequate safety factor. Sling safety factors should be at least 5-to-1. That means the sling should be able to lift 5 times the actual load to account for wear and other stresses. Crane cable is never wrapped around the load. This can weaken the lifting cable and make the load unstable. Use the right sling or device for the job. If multiple part lines are used, be sure they're not twisted around each other. Inspect all slings for wear and damage. Wire rope slings need to be carefully inspected for damage like breaks, kinking, crushing, and fraying. Before starting to lift a load, be sure it is well secured and properly balanced in the sling or lifting device. There should be no loose objects set on top of the load. They could slide off. Usually, the crane operator will lift the load a few inches off the ground to make sure everything is balanced and secure. Watch the load and the crane carefully. Cranes turn over from overloading. The margin of safety between the crane's rated capacity, structural strength, and tipping load ranges from 15 to 25%. That's why the crane operator applies a safety factor to ensure the crane can lift safely. Safe operators consider all variables, such as wind, rigging, load, and ground condition when deciding whether the load exceeds crane capacity. Should the crane start to tip when the load is lifted, signal the operator to stop immediately. Remember to keep the operating area clear of all personnel when the crane is lifting. No one should ever be allowed to ride the load, and keep an eye out for potential problems. Using your head can prevent accidents. The electrical power that makes work possible can also be dangerous when working around cranes. Power line contact is the largest single cause of deaths associated with cranes. No one should approach the crane and its load near power lines, nor should the boom be allowed to swing into the danger zone. By stepping off 15 feet from each power pole in the work zone and placing a barrier along this line, workers can be warned when the crane, boom, or load nears a radius of 10 feet in every direction. If you see such a hazard, warn the operator. If a crane comes in contact with a power line, keep everyone away and call for help. Consider power lines to be live even though they've been reported shut off, since automatic line reclosure can restore power, exposing rescuers to shock and victims to reshocking. If possible, the crane operator will stay in the cab and must break contact with the crane before disembarking. Stepping down can cause the operator to ground himself or herself and be electrocuted. Tag lines used to control a load must be non-conductive. Never use wire ropes for tag lines. Instead, use polyester, polyethylene, or polypropylene ropes for the best insulating properties. And make sure they're dry. A wet tag line can act just like wire rope and conduct electricity if it comes in contact with a power line. Even high humidity can affect tag line conductivity. If you're manning a tag line, be sure to keep it from getting tangled in objects or your clothing. Never wrap a tag line around any part of your body. If the load swings suddenly, you could be injured. An experienced signal person can also prevent accidents, especially when the crane is working near power lines or electrical equipment. Sharp observation from a safe distance and good signaling can direct the crane and load away from the power line. The signal person must be in direct visual or radio communication with the crane operator at all times and able to anticipate problems or hazards. The crane operator depends on a good signal person for directions on safe raising, moving, swinging, and lowering the load, especially when the operator cannot clearly see the load, its landing area, or the load's path of travel. Even distance from the load affects accuracy, so a signal person is critical to safe lifting. If you're asked to be the signal person, position yourself in full view of the crane operator and the load. Look for a place where you can clearly see the load and equipment without being hit. Sometimes crane signaling is done in relay to ensure clear view of everyone involved in the lift. Crane operating hand signals are standardized to avoid confusion. Here are some basic examples. To raise the load, extend your forearm, point your index finger upward, and move your hand in a circular motion. To lower, point down and use the same motion. To raise the boom, extend your arm with your fingers closed and point your thumb upward. To lower the boom, your thumb should be pointed down. To swing the load, extend your arm and point in the direction of swing. To stop any crane motion, extend your arm with the palm of your hand facing down and move your arm back and forth. For an emergency stop, extend both arms with palms down and move them back and forth. If you're asked to act as a signal person, carefully study the complete list of hand signals and learn them thoroughly before you begin. Working around cranes is an exciting business. A crane properly set up, inspected, and ready to begin lifting operations calls for workers who are alert and thinking. Remember, hazards are part of regular crane operations, and you need to act to prevent accidents. When the workday is over and the equipment shut down, the boom should be lowered to the ground if possible. Otherwise, it should be in a position where it won't do any damage if it accidentally swings or collapses. The safest practice is never to leave anything hanging from the hook. Although you've seen this many times, it is extremely dangerous to leave equipment hanging. If it is a standard practice on your job site, be sure the area beneath the suspended load is barricaded to keep everyone out. Most crane accidents can be avoided when operators and people working around them plan and work smart. Like most jobs, working around cranes is a team effort. Whether you're helping to set up a crane, directing a load, or simply working near a crane, safety rules and procedures must be followed to get the most from this tool and to protect yourself and your co-workers. Cranes are tools.
Maintained and used properly, they are invaluable in helping us build bigger and better structures, lift larger and heavier materials, and make our lives easier. But as with any tool, working smart, remaining alert, and following established safety guidelines help to make sure you'll get home from work in one piece.